In a recent video I did on the Chrysler turbine car, I talked about Stalhs Automotive Collection, and look, here we are. But I'm not going to show you the inside. We're going to look at the Orphan Car Show that's going on. We had some rain this morning, so not as many showed up, but it's cleared off now, so let's go ahead and take a look. And Orphan Car Show is basically anything where the brand has been deactivated, killed off, or maybe the parent company is no longer in existence and they've transferred things over. The show used to take place in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and was kind of hosted by the city and the Hudson Museum that's there, but did not come back strong after COVID. And so Stahls said, hey, let's start doing something like it. And here is a 1955 Willys pickup. Now, Willys Overland, Willys Jeep. So this eventually became Jeep, which is now part of, I don't know, something called Stellantis. But I'll show you the logo on the front because we're going to see it again later. There's the Willys logo. So this is a company that was operating down in Toledo, Ohio. And this is, I think you could best describe this as a resto mod. Check out some of the details. You could see the trail rated logo. That's from a modern Jeep. The interior has been very nicely cleaned up. Those are seat covers from Rugged Ridge. But you can just see all the fine details put into this vehicle. Very cool. And a perfect paint color too. And next to it we have a 1950 DeSoto. Now, if you're not familiar, DeSoto was one of the brands of the Chrysler Corporation. So you had Plymouth. We'll see some Plymouths here. Oh, look, there's a Plymouth right back there. Plymouth, Dodge, DeSoto, and also Imperial. Imperial wasn't considered a Chrysler at first. It was its own brand. So let's take a look under the hood. And kind of interesting, you can see the badge in the back there. DeSoto was named after the explorer DeSoto, and there's his skull, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a very cool logo on the front of this, and car is super chrome. And I'll show you something else on the inside of this one. Two things actually on the inside. Now, cars after World War II were getting much more advanced and complex, and this owner has a great collection of memorabilia. Actually, you can see even over there, zoom in a little bit, a DeSoto, another face. But these manuals, they kind of read like comic books. So you could see, how to set the distributor on the V8 engine, things like that. It was probably just deemed easier, you know what, let's see if we can get the mechanics working at the dealership to read a comic book. They'll read that rather than some stuffy old manual. The other thing I want to point out on this car, in addition to the fabulous interior, is that this has a fluid drive. And you'll see that on another DeSoto here. It's not an automatic, but it's kind of like I guess I would describe it as like a hydraulic torque converter in place of a disposable or usable clutch. So maybe I'll put a link to a better description than that. But my first thought was, oh, fluid drive, it must be an automatic. Actually, it's not. But anyway, next to it is a 1955 Plymouth Belvedere. And also great ornaments. That used to be my favorite thing to do at car shows, is just take a camera and make pictures of all the great chrome ornaments and accents. This one has the two-door, the very attractive red and black. It's a very long and powerful coupe. While I'm here, Let's just take a swing by this bit of a hot rod Mercury. Now this one is a 1947, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. And yeah, no, there are people, especially once Mercury turned into the 1950s, kind of modernized the styling a little bit. This was a little bit of a carryover from pre-war styling. And then once the 50s came in, they loosened things up a little bit. So beautiful Mercury 8 in 1947. Won't say much about this one, but this is a Studebaker pickup. Highly customized and very mean looking. Cool. Another beautiful DeSoto. And like I said, DeSoto is an orphan brand because even though Chrysler hung around, the DeSoto brand did not. Eventually, Plymouth did not either. So remember that Willys Jeep I talked about? This is also a Willys. This is a 1953 Willys Aero Eagle, which I am not familiar with at all. And I'll have to ask if this ornament, I'm guessing the ornament is modified with like a wrap. But if it's not, that was stunning.
My dad had a 55.
And they did not make too many cars, but they did try to continue with their successful Jeep lineup. And Jeep eventually became part of American Motors. American Motors became part of Chrysler, and then Fiat, Chrysler, and Stellantis. Absolutely flawless interior.
Oh yeah.
And this is a Wildfire. And I'm going to try to talk to the owner on this one because the story is unique. This is a Woodill Wildfire Roadster. So essentially they were trying to make available custom bodies. This is a 1953, so a Southern California car dealership wanted to get into the roadster business. I'm sure you can imagine out in Southern California at the time, lots of hot rods were racing in the deserts and a car culture really exploding. They wanted to get part of that. And so they worked to try and make these available. The story goes on, but never became a long, fruitful success. But you see another Belvedere and Pontiac, which unfortunately is also an Orphan Car brand. Here's an 87 Fiero, the GT, where they put the fastback on the back. Probably, well, let's take a look. I'm gonna guess this is the 2.8 liter. I think they only came with a 2.8 liter. Yep, there we go. And it's a mid-engine, not a rear engine. And this is a 1972 Opel. General Motors owned Opel at the time, and they did up until recently, and began to import smaller cars to try and stave off competition from the imports like Volkswagen, like Fiat, and as well as the Japanese. Here's an Oldsmobile Toronado, another General Motors brand that did not survive. And I mentioned DeSoto. Here's a couple of Plymouths. And this one I'm just going to get drawn to is a Volare, right? And the color I can only describe as like a pale beige. The interior is fantastic. You can see it keeps that same color scheme on the inside with what can only be described as scratchy looking cloth seats. So this is a 1980 Plymouth Volare. So sad that Pontiac was not able to survive. The indications were that when General Motors was restructuring, they wanted to maintain the Buick name over Pontiac or Oldsmobile because Buick had some brand reputation and familiarity in the China market. So that's what they went with. Now, Chryslers, there are a few Chryslers here. I'm guessing it's because it's Chrysler's 100th anniversary, so they're centennial, and they just wanted to give them an opportunity to show off. Here's a 1962 Pontiac Tempest. Whoops, trying to get that in focus a little bit. But let's go through here. This is a Studebaker Golden Hawk. And it's a beautiful example of one too. 1957. Let's take a look at the interior. Somebody's flying a drone. I should start using my drone. I haven't played around with it or not. So stunning looking. Maybe it's not to your liking. But if you wanted to get noticed, this is probably a good car to drive. All right, who else did I want to cover in here? Oh, the Hudson. And here we have a Hudson with the inline 6 twin H-Power. So it's 2 carburetors. This one's had a number of modifications to it, so not exactly original, but better. And yeah, this car had a reputation for being like the NASCAR powertrain of choice and completely dominant for about 2 seasons. Getting a little bit busy over here. Got a nice Oldsmobile over there. I mentioned before, Imperial was considered its own brand, not just a Chrysler. So here is an Imperial. You can see no mention of the word Chrysler on anywhere. Then we got an AMX, an American Motor AMX with the 360 cubic inch V8. Very, very cool paint schemes on this. Very short too, compared to some other vehicles. It seemed like the trend was maybe to go longer with some of its other competitors. Mustang in particular, once the 71 came along, got very long and a little bit thicker, whereas this one much more compact. AMC had a reputation for kind of doing its own thing, and sometimes they set standards and styling and performance, and sometimes, well, maybe they came across as a bit awkward, which, see, I went too far. I should head around back to that Pacer over there. You can see next to it that another Jeep, which again is a brand that still exists, but so the Pacer was also an American Motors. And what I wanted to talk about with this one so much is the interior. It's a 2-door. So this is a 77, the very groovy interior.
For the winning cars. So we'll be back somewhere right around 2:30 to bring it up to date.
Another car I wanted to point out here too, which you know, not necessarily an orphan brand, but in America it is Citroen. And super skinny tires on this thing, but what really makes it noticeable would be its French styling. Oh. You can see on the inside, this is something you'll see on some other modern Citroen and French vehicles in general. You can see it's a one-spoke steering wheel. Does that work? Sure, but why does it have to be that way? I don't know. Just daring to be different. And so, yeah. Oh, last one. Very cool. Oh, even the front end of this kind of looks like he ate something sour. It's a 1969 Citroen. And I'll end it with acknowledging the DeLorean we saw coming in. Here's another DeLorean, but this one's got a secret in the back. So very nice example of I believe this is a 1982, if I recall correctly. I did a walkthrough in advance. Got the doors up. But the real surprise, manual transmission, and of course, small block Chevy engine. Why not? This one, he did a kind of a parade, and they did a discussion about this vehicle earlier. And yeah, you could tell just from the sitting there idling that this was a different type of DeLorean. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the walkthrough.